Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
Inside the inner palace of the Crystal Palace, an exceptionally beautiful woman was currently sobbing as she held the dragon token dearly against her chest. "My love, I missed you terribly," the beautiful woman said through her tears. "It has been so long since I heard your voice. How long have I waited for this day? Why did you only visit me now? Can't you have returned to me sooner?" The sadness and heartache in the woman's voice made Kyoza's soul also feel heartbroken despite the fact that he currently didn't have a body. "Forgive me, Evangeline," Kyoza said softly. "I wish I could have returned sooner, but it took a while for fate to play her hand. I'm sorry for making you wait for a very long time." Evangeline wept as she pressed Kyoza's dragon token against her chest, wishing that it could merge with her body so that they could always be together. Lady Augustina, who was watching this from the side, also had tears streaming down the side of her face. Just like Evangeline, she had terribly missed her master, who should have been the one and only dragon king of the entire dragon race. "Our child has already grown so much," Kyoza commented. "It must have been hard on you." Evangeline shook her head. "If it wasn't because of your sacrifice, our child wouldn't have been born in the first place, or looks a lot like you when you were younger." "No," Kyoza replied, "or looks more like you. Only the color of our eyes is the same. Yes, your blue eyes that remind me of the clear blue sky from the day you confessed your love to me." Evangeline smiled as the tears in her eyes continued to flow. "It has been over 100 years since then. My love, how long must I wait for your return? Although your voice alleviates my pain a little, I want to hold you in my arms and be embraced by you in return." "I wish I knew, my love," Kyoza replied. "Right now, Lux can summon my soul one more time. After that, my contract with him will be over. Then I will regain my freedom. Can't you simply ask him to just free you instead?" Evangeline asked. "I'm sure that he will gladly do it in exchange for us allowing him to seek asylum here in our domain. If that's not enough, we can always give him treasures. Must we really wait until he has a need for you before you can return to your original body?" A sigh emanated from the dragon token. "Evangeline, although I am sure that Lux will readily agree to my request, I won't ask him to free me just yet." But why? Haven't you helped him enough? Haven't you sacrificed enough?" Kyoza's gentle voice, which Lux had never heard before, whispered in the beautiful woman's heart. "Right now, Lux is facing individuals who stand at the apex of the world," Kyoza said. "He has just become a ranker, and his opponents are already saints. Even if his guild headquarters is to be given asylum here in the Crystal Palace, his fate lies elsewhere. He will venture to places that few people have set their eyes on. Challenge monsters who are above his league. Face obstacles that will challenge his limits. I think you should take a look at. And meet people who will form strong bonds with him, which will also be his strength in the uncertain future that lay in front of us." Suddenly, Kyoza's demi-human form materialized in front of Evangeline. He lowered his head and kissed his wife's forehead as he lovingly cupped her face, making her look into his blue eyes that had made her heart skip a beat centuries ago. "My love, I ask you to wait a little bit longer." Kyoza smiled faintly before kissing her lips. A few seconds later, he pulled back and once again returned to the dragon token in her hand. "When darkness comes knocking on heaven's doors, the sun shall rise over darkened skies," Kyoza said with a solemn voice. "With his unholy army, he will open the gates of heaven, and from there, he will descend upon the world and end the folly of the craven. When the void delivers its greeting, the world's survival will be fleeting. Despite the struggles of the living, it is the dead whose blades will do the killing. Looking for the pillars of serenity will aid a world of its longevity. Even if you were to hold the power of eternity, without a heart, all will fall to depravity. As the final hour approaches, all hope will vanish without a trace. Only the bonds forged from countless heartaches will make both worlds a better place." The dragon token glowed faintly, warming Evangeline's weeping heart. She understood that her husband had chosen to save the world in his own way, and because of this, she decided to trust her husband and wait. Wait until his oath was fulfilled by helping the half-elf one last time. The words that Kyoza said, she knew them all by heart. For she was the one that had seen that grim future and almost lost her heart. Her child back then, who was still unborn, was the one who suffered from the backlash of her vision. And in order to save or end their future, Kyoza decided to take matters into his own hands. Turning his back on his responsibilities as king, he did what he thought was the right thing. Making a pact with the one god remaining in their world, he cast aside his body and sealed his soul inside the dragon token, waiting for the day when someone would stumble upon him and free him from his 100 years of suffering. However, after meeting Lux, he found the half-elf to his liking. Although he missed his family, he also wished to accompany the red-headed teenager for a little while longer. Kyoza had chosen Lux, and their meeting could only be described as a leap of faith. Now that their contract had been made, his and the half-elf's futures were firmly tied by the red strings of fate. After dinner, Lux returned to his room. Sitting on his bed, he was currently looking at the 4 skill books in front of him. These were the skill books that he had acquired from his previous quests. He held off using them until now. The reason for this was simple. Great General Sherlock had mentioned in passing that learning skills from skill books would give him better returns the higher his rank when he used them. Skill books are like beast cores, Lux, Great General Sherlock had told him back then. The stronger the monster, the better. This will allow you to learn rarer and more powerful skills that you won't be able to acquire when your rank is low. Because of this, he had held back in activating these skill books until he became a ranker. Let's do this, Lux thought as he picked up one skill book after the other, adding 4 new skills to his ever-growing list. The first skill he got was Bone Spike, EX. This skill allowed Lux to summon 2-meter bone spikes that jutted out of the ground in a straight line, impaling those who were in its way. The second skill was called Cripple, EX, which would randomly cripple one of the limbs of his target for 10 minutes. Lux found this skill quite interesting because it could render his enemy unable to use their crippled limb effectively in combat. The only downside of this skill was that it would only work on humans and demi-humans that were of the same rank or lower than his current rank. But the good part was that this skill would bypass any magical defenses, taking his enemy completely by surprise. The third skill was called Chilling Touch, EX. This skill allowed Lux to empower up to 100 creatures with the Chilling Touch ability, adding ice elemental damage to their attacks. Last but not the least was the skill called Finger of Death EX. Among Lux's new skills, this one made him arch an eyebrow. First and foremost, this skill only worked on monsters. However, it didn't work on boss monsters. However, it could insta-kill alpha-ranked monsters that had the same rank or lower rank than Lux. The skill description also mentioned that, while the skill primarily targeted monsters, it was applicable on humans as well. It could inflict great pain on humans of the same rank as Lux or lower, although it wouldn't be lethal. The half-elf then glanced at the baby slime that was sleeping on top of his pillow and smiled. Back in the Necromancer's ancestral lands, Aiko had licked the Calamity-ranked Beast Core and learned an interesting skill. This skill was called Mind Reader, EX. Just as the name implied, this ability allowed Aiko to hear the thoughts of people up to 200 meters away from her. I think you should take a look at. This skill was always active, but it didn't mean that she would hear the thoughts of everyone around her. She could choose to read the thoughts of others on her own accord, so she wouldn't suffer from needless noise coming from her surroundings. The good part about this skill was that, since Aiko was Lux's beast companion, this skill was linked to him as well, allowing him to read the mind of others. Also, those that bore ill will towards Aiko and Lux would have their thoughts automatically heard by them. For the half-elf, this skill was an incredible ability, which made him wonder what kind of powerful monster the Calamity-ranked Beast Core belonged to. Tomorrow, Lux muttered as he lightly patted Aiko's head before laying on the bed. Tomorrow, I will know if we can stay here in the territory of the Crystal Palace for a year, or if we need to look for some other place to go to. The half-elf then closed his eyes to sleep, for he knew that in the upcoming days, he wouldn't get much rest once the relocation of their guild headquarters commenced. Outer Reaches, Karshvar Draconis. What? This guild headquarters will relocate to a different location. Valerie, who had been informed that Lux's floating island might leave Karshvar Draconis, suddenly felt alarmed. She knew that her father didn't want to give asylum to Lux and his guild headquarters, but she didn't expect that the half-elf would decide to move his guild headquarters, along with the floating island, to another place. I'm afraid that we are left with no other choice, Emma said with a bitter smile. Karshvar Draconis is at the center of the world, and it is closer to the territories that belong to the divine army of light. It is only a matter of time before they get wind that Lux is staying here, and when that happens. Emma trailed off, not finishing her sentence. However, this was enough to make Valerie feel anxious. If Sir Lux's guild headquarters disappears from the outer reaches, then how am I supposed to see him again? The dragon princess was very unwilling to part with the red-headed teenager forever, so she decided to return to the palace in order to convince her father to change his mind. Ari, let's go, Valerie ordered before placing her baby dragon slime, K, on top of her head. We're going back to the capital. As my lady wishes. The two maids replied in unison and trailed behind Valerie, who was in a hurry to get back home. Cethis' grandma, Lady Faustina, who seemed to have an inkling about what the dragon princess was thinking, sighed in her heart. I just hope that she won't sneak outside of the palace in order to visit Lux in the Crystal Palace, Lady Faustina thought. I guess I better pay close attention to her over the next few days. After seeing the way Valerie looked at the half-elf, the wise dragonborn immediately figured out that the dragon princess might have developed a crush on Lux. This was very normal for girls her age, but she wasn't an ordinary girl. She was the daughter of the Dragon King, and only those who had the qualifications to match her status would have the chance to marry her. Although Lux had his own achievements, she was worried that it wasn't enough to impress the Dragon King, whom she was sure would crush anyone who dared to court the daughter he treasured with all of his heart. No, the Dragon King said firmly. I already said that I won't help him. I will not change my mind now. But father, he really needs your help right now, Valerie insisted. How can you be so heartless? Valerie, why do you insist on speaking up for that boy? The Dragon King asked. Don't tell me that you like him?
Yes,
Valerie replied. I like him, and I want him to stay here in Karshvar Draconis. Not happening, the Dragon King replied and raised his hand. Guards, take the princess back to the inner palace and make sure that she doesn't leave that place unless I give her my permission. Lady Faustina visualized this scene inside her head as she followed the determined princess who was marching toward the royal palace. Although Lady Faustina wasn't sure if this was the exact scene that would play out later, she knew to a certain extent that reality wouldn't be far from what she had imagined. I better handle this properly, or else Valerie might develop a rebellious attitude, Lady Faustina thought. When they were nearing the gates of the royal palace, the right-hand woman of the Dragon King stood in front of the princess, blocking her way. What's wrong, Lady Faustina? Valerie asked. I need to see my father. The Dragonborn smiled before making a few hand seals, sealing the place where she and Valerie were, preventing anyone from seeing or eavesdropping on their conversation. Princess, tell me, why are you going so far for Lux? Lady Faustina asked in a kind and gentle tone. Do you perhaps like him? Like him? Valerie immediately turned beet red after hearing the Dragonborn's question. It's not like I like him or anything. He just told me that he will take responsibility countless times in my dreams. In your dreams? I mean, he said that he would take responsibility for Kay. Isn't that right, Kay?
ZZZ.
The baby dragon slime snickered instead of answering Valerie's question, showing his mischievous side. Lady Faustina sighed as she pressed her hand over her forehead. Listen to me, Your Highness, Lady Faustina said. I can understand that you think fondly and highly of Lux, but your father doesn't feel the same for him. In fact, I think he dislikes Lux very much. In no way. Valerie felt as if cold water was poured over her head. That can't be right. Father is a very just and righteous king. Of course he is, Lady Faustina replied. But this only applies to the dragon race as a whole. In the end, Lux is a half-elf and belongs to the lower realm. Your father's righteousness and justice doesn't extend to him. Valerie's face paled as she looked at Lady Faustina in disbelief. However, She knew that the Dragonborn wouldn't lie to her because she had cared for Valerie during her younger years and treated her like a granddaughter. Then what should I do? Valerie asked. I don't want to be separated from Sir Lux. I think you should take a look at. Lady Faustina didn't give the other party an answer right away. She closed her eyes and pondered for a few minutes before opening them again to look at the despairing princess, who was still looking like a plain girl. I have an idea that will allow you to see Lux from time to time, Lady Faustina said. But you have to promise me one thing. You will not tell your father that you like Lux. Trust me when I say that your father would pose a far greater threat to Lux than the divine army of light if he came to know that you fancy the half-elf. Truth be told, Lady Faustina had no obligation to help Lux. However, her grandson, Cephas, had become a better person after becoming part of his guild. Since that was the case, the doting grandmother decided to extend her help to the clueless half-elf, who had no idea that he was so close to being pinched to death by the Dragon King, who ruled over Karshvar Draconis. If I listen to you, Aunt Faustina, will I be able to see him? Valerie asked. Can I see him even if he goes far away? The possibility exists, Lady Faustina answered. I can help you pull some strings, and I will even accompany you when you go and see him. All I ask of you is that you keep your feelings safe inside your heart and don't let your father know about them. Then, how about my mother? Valerie asked. I don't want to lie to her. Actually, we will need your mother's help with this, Lady Faustina replied. I alone will not be able to keep this secret. If she is on our side, our chances of making the Dragon King not hurt the half-elf once he finds out about this are higher. The Dragonborn then shifted her gaze to the two maids, who both had a determined look on their faces. I'm sure that I don't need to tell the two of you to keep this a secret as well, Lady Faustina said to Ali and Ari. If you value your oath to protect the princess by all means, then you will keep this secret and help her if need be. We hear and obey, Your Excellency, Ali replied. We will keep this secret safe with everything we have, Ari stated. Lady Faustina nodded before cupping Valerie's face. Go back to the inner palace for now and wait for my visit, Lady Faustina said. Also, don't tell your mother anything yet. I will talk to her first and relay your feelings to her. Also, you must also behave and listen to your father's words so that he won't suspect a thing. Valerie nodded and promised to do what she was told. She then took Ali and Ari to the secret passages that led directly to the inner palace, leaving Lady Faustina alone with her thoughts. For the time being, I need to contact my sister, Lady Faustina thought. As long as she agrees, I will have an excuse to take Valerie to the Crystal Palace. The Dragonborn sighed in her heart as she thought about what needed to be done. She fully understood that love blinded people, making them unable to think properly. However, if this matter wasn't handled carefully, the princess and the half-elf, who didn't know that the princess of Karshvar Draconis had developed a crush on him, might suffer terrible consequences if things got out of hand. In order to prevent this unwanted future, Lady Faustina cooked up a plan inside her head. A plan that would rekindle the connection between Karshvar Draconis and the Crystal Palace, who had broken their ties with each other due to circumstances that happened many years ago. In the throne room of the Crystal Palace, after careful consideration, I decided to accept your request, Lady Augustina said. You can relocate your guild headquarters here for a year. However, after a year has passed, all of you have to leave. Also, remember this. I will only protect those who are within my territory. If you were to meet the divine army of light outside my area of jurisdiction, it is no longer my concern. Flee or fight, the choice will be yours and your guild members. Just remember that outside my domain, you are no longer under my protection. When the divine army of light comes here to inquire about you, I will give them that answer. Do we have an understanding? Lux nodded. Thank you, Your Excellency. I am fine with this arrangement. Good. As long as you understand, then our talk is over. Lady Augustina then glanced at Picoro, who was standing beside Or. You will oversee their relocation procedure, Picoro. If the Divine Army of Light makes an appearance while the Boys Guild headquarters is on its way to our domain, make sure to tell them that if they don't want me to demolish their divine city, they'd better mind their own business. As you command, my liege. Picoro pressed his closed fist over his chest and bowed respectfully. As long as I am around, not even a rock from that floating island will be touched. Lady Augustina smirked after hearing Picoro's words. Among the saints of the Crystal Palace, the black-scaled dragonborn was known for being the most hot-tempered. If the divine army of light really got in Picoro's way, then a battle would certainly take place. Allow me to accompany him as well, Aunt Augustina, or stated. Since Picoro will be there, I'm sure that I'll be safe no matter what. Lady Augustina pondered for a while before nodding her head. Just to be safe, I'll ask 6 more saints to accompany you as your guardians, Lady Augustina replied. Make sure to conduct yourself properly as the Prince of the Crystal Palace, and don't go wandering anywhere without your guards. I understand. Or nodded before shifting his gaze to Lux. I'll be in your care for a while, Lux. I'm also very curious about your guild headquarters. I'll give you a tour, Lux promised. Although it's not as grand as the Crystal Palace, it's not too shabby either. 5 minutes later, Lux left the throne room, accompanied by Or and Picoro. As they were headed toward the teleportation gate located inside the palace's grounds, they found JAP, who had been waiting for them. Well, did the steward agree to your request? JAP asked. Yes, master, Lux replied. Are you also finished with your business in the city? Something like that. JAP smiled, showing his complete set of teeth, which had grown back after the halfling received a part of the world's blessing that Lux had imparted to him. Are we going back to the outer reaches now? Lux nodded, and JP stepped aside to allow his disciple to enter the portal first. He had already added the coordinates of their guild headquarters while waiting for Lux. JAP already knew Kyoza's identity, so if the Crystal Palace didn't agree to Lux's request, he would certainly look down on the Crystal Dragon, whose soul was residing inside the dragon token. I think you should take a look at. Lady Augustina still hadn't returned the dragon token to Lux, and simply told the half-elf that she would be keeping it for a month as compensation for agreeing to the half-elf's request. The red-headed teenager didn't mind this condition since it was only for a month. Aside from relocating his guild, the only place he intended to go was Agartha. The key in his possession allowed him to teleport 2 more people alongside him to the legendary city near the core of Elysium. However, aside from his master, he didn't intend to bring anyone else with him. Just like Karshvar Draconis and the Crystal Palace, the Kingdom of Agartha was an SSS-ranked kingdom. This meant that there was a supreme guarding it. Since Lux and JAP had their ways of escaping on their own, the half-elf deemed it best to not bring anyone else for their own safety. A minute later, Or and Picoro gazed at the unfamiliar scenery in front of them. The black-scaled dragonborn frowned, seeing that the place was not up to his standards. Although he had to admit that the palace made up of white marble looked impressive, there was nothing else that caught his interest. The construction that was going on at the base of the mountain did not pique his curiosity either. For Picoro, every lowlander city looked the same, even if it were being built on a floating island. At that moment, a familiar voice called out to the dragon-born saint from the sky. Uncle Picoro. Cephas shouted before landing on the ground a few meters from his uncle. What are you doing here? I am here to supervise your guild's relocation. Obviously, Picoro snorted in disdain. Still, I never thought the day would come that you'd become a ranker. I thought you'd be stuck in the initiate rank all your life. This time, it was Cephas' turn to snort. How can that even be possible, uncle? A genius like me is bound to soar to greater heights. Just you wait, in a few years, I'll also become a saint. Huh. If you become a saint, I will be the one to call you uncle. Picoro sneered. You dumb brat can only be a high ranker at most. Haha. Very well. I'll make you call me Uncle Picoro, Cephas replied. This only makes me want to reach that rank sooner. Just imagining you calling me uncle is already giving me goosebumps. Without any warning, Picoro bumped his fist on Cephas' head, making the arrogant dragonborn cry out in pain. The only bump you are going to get is a bump in the head. Picoro scoffed. Lux and Ur watched this scene with smiles on their faces. Although it seemed like Picoro was looking down on his nephew, Cephas, one could feel how close the two of them were despite the rude words that both of them were hurling at each other. JAP stood on the top of the mountain, looking toward the east. After getting Lady Augustina's permission, the only thing he was waiting for was Lux's signal to start the relocation process. Currently, the half-elf was talking to Bentley about moving the entire island, thinking that it might inconvenience the merchant guild if they changed locations. Master, Bentley said that there is no problem, Lux said through their guild chat. We can go anytime you're ready. Very well, JP replied. Have you said goodbye to everyone? Including Valerie? That girl seems to have taken a liking to you, my boy. Please, don't tease me, Master. I'm sure that Valerie just kissed me out of gratitude. Also, she was not here when we arrived, Lux answered. There was a hint of disappointment in his voice that didn't escape JAP's senses, but he didn't say anything about it. Do you know why she left? Emma said that she returned to the capital in a hurry after finding out that our guild will move to a different place. Is that so? That's too bad then. GAP smiled before raising his hand. Tell everyone that we are moving. I will now order the Earth, no, Sky Turtle to start flying in the direction of the Crystal Palace. A minute later, the entire floating island shook as the giant head of a turtle, its flippers, and its tail jutted out of the island. It roared once, as if to announce its presence, making the guards of the nearby city of Pygmalion look in its direction. Full speed ahead, Raphael, GAAP ordered. Onwards to the Crystal Palace. The Sky Turtle roared a second time to acknowledge its master's order. It then moved its flippers, and with it, the floating island started to move as well. By the dragon god, the island is moving away? One of the guards of the city of Pygmalion gasped in shock. Is it being carried by a turtle? Another guard asked. No, it looks like the island itself is a turtle. Since when did this happen? Someone, go and call the mayor, the captain of the guards ordered. Report what is happening to the island right now. While the guards of the city of Pygmalion looked at the floating island that was getting further and further away, the Dragon King of Karshvar Draconis glanced in the direction of the outer reaches. Not a bad move, the Dragon King commented. I guess you managed to find someone else to babysit you and your lot. If someone were to ask if the Dragon King was annoyed because one of his floating islands was moving elsewhere, then his answer would be yes. However, since that island currently had a troublemaker that might involve his kingdom in the conflicts of the lower realm, he decided that it would be better if they just went away. News of the floating island, leaving immediately spread like wildfire to the other cities in Karshvar Draconis. Several dragons and dragonborns even took off to the skies in order to see if the news was real. The outer reaches was located at the very edge of Karshvar Draconis, so Lux's floating island passed by the other floating islands at a steady pace, like a tourist doing some sort of sightseeing. This had never happened in the past, so the denizens of Karshvar Draconis found this event very interesting. Some of the dragons and dragonborns even landed on the island to ask about what was happening. When Lux and his guild members explained that they were planning to relocate to a different place, the dragons and dragonborns thought that this was a very novel idea. Dragons like to travel, and they would often go to places that others had not set their sights on. This was true for dragonborns as well, so most of them wandered the lower realms in search of something that might catch their interest. It took the floating island 2 days before they finally passed the last floating island that belonged to the Dragon Kingdom. However, they met someone along the way, which gave Lux a very pleasant surprise. Valerie, who was accompanied by Ali, Ari, and Lady Faustina, was standing on top of a golden dragon that was at least 10 meters long. I think you should take a look at. The dragon then landed on the floating island, and Valerie jumped off of its back. She was still wearing her plain-looking disguise, and she looked at the half-elf whom she liked with a calm expression on her face. Faustina had warned her that for as long as they were within the territory of Karshvar Draconis, she mustn't do something that might make the Dragon King angry. Lady Faustina had a heart-to-heart talk with Valerie's mother, Saphira. She explained that the Dragon Princess had developed a crush on Lux and asked Saphira for her help in allowing Valerie to visit the Crystal Palace as a representative of Karshvar Draconis. Their goal was to smooth out the relationship between the two sides and promote a peaceful coexistence. Saphira was against the idea at first, but she still reluctantly agreed in the end. She understood that Valerie was still too innocent to understand the ways of the world, but she also knew that keeping her caged in the inner palace would do her more harm than good. Although she still didn't think that Lux was a good match for her daughter, she decided to let things take its course. If Valerie's feelings for Lux waned during her short visit to the Crystal Palace, then that only meant that what she felt for the half-elf was merely a short-term puppy love, one that wasn't strong enough to be taken to the next stage. Picoro eyed the high ranker with a solemn expression on his face. Since Lady Faustina and Lady Augustina were twins, he didn't dare to say any rude words to her, fearing that it might come back to bite him at a later time. Also, even though Lady Faustina's strength was that of a high ranker, Picoro knew that it was just a ruse to make other people lower their guard. How could the right-hand woman of the king of Karshvar Draconis, who had fought countless battles against the Void, as well as the other races who dared to attack the Dragon Kingdom, be an ordinary high ranker? Actually, Lady Faustina was a very powerful saint. Her special ability was shockwaves. She was so powerful that she could injure anyone just by simply standing a distance away from them. Because of this, she had sealed her powers, making herself regress to that of a high ranker. That way, the shock waves that would suddenly pulse around her without warning and hurt those around her would go away. Lady Faustina, it has been a while since I last saw you, Picoro said in greeting. Are you well? As well as I'll ever be, Picoro, Lady Faustina replied. We'll be reaching the Crystal Palace in a few days. I already talked to my sister about visiting, and she gave her approval. Since my liege has already given her approval, then all is well, Picoro nodded. We will give you the best hospitality during your stay in our humble kingdom. Picoro then glanced at the plain-looking girl beside Faustina and frowned. Since he was a saint, he had detected that the girl was using a disguise to hide her real face. Could she possibly be? Picoro thought before shifting his gaze back at Lady Faustina, who was also looking at him with a smile. Cethus' grandmother gave Picoro a brief nod, which confirmed the saint's assumption, or frowned after seeing Valerie. Although the girl had a plain-looking face, he could tell that it wasn't her real face. Also, he noticed the gaze that Valerie was giving Lux. Although she had tried hard to hide it, or wasn't able to miss the admiration and affection in her gentle gaze. Just who is this girl? Or thought. Lady Faustina, who is the twin of Aunt Augustina, is also with her. Clearly, she is not an ordinary lady. The prince of the Dragonborns placed his hands behind his back and stood tall, befitting of someone with his standing. Even though he didn't know who Valerie was, he was certain that the person in front of him was a member of the royalty of Karshvar Draconis, just like him. Valerie had completely ignored the handsome dragon prince who was standing beside Lux. In her heart, there was only room for one handsome guy, and it was already taken by the red-headed teenager who was looking back at her with a gentle smile on his face. Sir Lux, I've heard from Lady Faustina that you are relocating your guild headquarters to the Crystal Palace. Is that true? Valerie asked the half-elf, who was standing beside her. Yes, Lux replied. Are you perhaps one of Lady Faustina's servants? Yeah? Yes. I am one of them. Valerie stuttered. She asked me to accompany her to the Crystal Palace. I see. Lux nodded. Actually, I'm happy to see you again. I planned to properly bid you farewell, but when I returned to the outer reaches, you were no longer there. Valerie lowered her head, hiding her face, as she tried to calm her heart that was wildly beating inside her chest. When she heard Lux say that he was happy to see her again, she felt incredibly happy as well. However, when he got to the part about him bidding her farewell, she felt a stinging pain in her heart, which she didn't like. Although she had only known Lux for a short period of time, she wanted to know more about him. She wanted to see his expressions that she had never seen before and talk to him a lot more. Sir Lux, you don't need to say goodbye to me since I will be regularly visiting your guild headquarters, even if it is at the Crystal Palace, Valerie replied. Kay also wants to visit the place where he was born. Isn't that right, Kay? Zzz, the baby dragon slime snickered in reply. After being with the baby slime for a while, Valerie already knew that this was Kay's way of communication. Even so, she could tell that baby slime was agreeing with her, which made her smile. Will Lady Faustina allow it? Lux asked in a worried tone. I know that she holds a high rank in Karshvar Draconis, and fewer restrictions are upon her and those under her, but she might not always allow you to visit me here." Valerie nodded. "She will. I'm sure of it." Ali and Ari, who were standing a few meters away from them, exchanged glances with each other. It had been an hour since the floating island had left Karshvar Draconis, and only at this moment did the Dragon Princess approach Lux to talk to him. Lady Faustina deemed that they were far enough away to not be seen by the Dragon King, so she allowed the plain-looking girl to finally talk to the person whom she wished to see. While Lux and Valerie were talking, Orin Picoro gazed at them from a distance. "Your Highness, do you already know that the girl talking to Lux is wearing a disguise?" Picoro asked in a tone that only Or could hear. "Yes," Or replied. "Since Lady Faustina is accompanying her, it is safe to say that she is a high-ranking noble of Karshvar Draconis. Also, she might also be a member of their royal family." Picoro smirked. "I talked to Lady Faustina a while ago, and she said that her purpose in coming here was to rekindle the relationship between Karshvar Draconis and the Crystal Palace." "Is that so?" Or smiled. "Are they feeling anxious because we rejected the continuation of the non-aggression pact we signed decades ago? Perhaps. I'm sure that the arrogant Dragon King is not able to sit peacefully on his throne, knowing that the rightful king can take back his throne anytime. Let him be arrogant for a little while longer. The moment my father returns, he can kiss his dragon throne goodbye." The smile on Picoro's face widened in response, as this was something that he was looking forward to the most. However, Lady Augustina had told everyone that even if Chiyoza returned, he might not take the throne away from the current Dragon King. The Crystal Dragon was someone who looked at the bigger picture. He neither cared about such a position nor the power that came with it. What he wanted the most was the survival of the entire dragon race as a whole and the continuation of Elysium's prosperity for years to come. "Say, Your Highness, I'm just making a conjecture here," Picoro said. "What if that girl is actually the Dragon Princess? How should we treat her when we arrive at the Crystal Palace?" Or didn't reply right away, as if he was pondering the answer to this question. 2 minutes later, he made his opinion known, which didn't surprise Picoro. "Treat her as a guest, just like we treat Lux," Or replied. "We are not narrow-minded, and we certainly don't need to bully the weak. Also, my mother once told me that my father believed in a saying." "A saying?" Picoro arched an eyebrow. He was very interested in anything related to Chiyoza, so he no longer talked and waited for, or to say the Crystal Dragon's favorite quote. "What you do in life echoes through eternity," Or said softly. "Even if no one sees the hardships and sacrifices that you are making, it doesn't matter. All the good things you do will return to you in some other way or form. This also goes for the bad things. That's why we shouldn't be petty, Picoro. The doors of the Crystal Palace will never be closed to those who wish to enter its gates." Picoro chuckled after hearing Or's explanation. He was quite impressed that the Dragon Prince was more understanding than he originally expected. "It is a good saying, Your Highness," Picoro replied. "I'll make sure to keep it in my heart." Or nodded before shifting his gaze back to Lux and Valerie, who were standing side by side. Although he had a calm look on his face, he was feeling a little envious due to how close the two were from his point of view. Does he really not know who she is, or is he just pretending not to know? Or thought as he eyed the red-headed teenager with a critical gaze. Looking at Lux's body language, Or could tell that the half-elf was at ease around Valerie, which was quite different from how he acted whenever he was with him. Although Lux acted casually whenever he talked to him, the former only did so due to his request, and he could tell that the half-elf still had reservations about treating him as a friend. Things like this take time, Or thought to himself. Actually, how do dragons make friends? Or had been protected his entire life by his mother, Aunt Augustina, as well as the other saints like Picoro. He never had the time to make friends with anyone, so he was feeling a little anxious when it came to befriending the half-elf, whom their family secretly treated as a benefactor. Ever since Chiyoza had appeared to save him in the Gate of Famine, Or knew then and there that he finally found the person he was looking for. While he had never seen his father in his lifetime, there were still strong bonds that tied the two of them together. Although it was fleeting, Or recognized who Chiyoza was, and with that, he also recognized who Lux was. The half-elf was the one his father had chosen, and because of this, or intended to deepen his relationship with Lux and create a strong bond with him that would endure the test of. Are you certain about this news? The High King of Lunaria asked one of the followers of the Divine Army that came to talk to him in private. If you are lying to me, I'll make you regret it. Your Majesty, both of us are on the same side. The man who was wearing merchant's clothes replied with a smile. Also, I'm a businessman. Trust is one of the most important things in business, and you know that I take this matter very seriously. The High King of Lunaria nodded his head, knowing that the man in front of him was indeed a very trustworthy person. You have to forgive me for my stubbornness, but this is a very important matter to our order, the High King of Lunaria stated. How did you know that the half-elf is in Karshvar Draconis? Ah, this is an easy matter, the merchant replied. You see, I am one of the handful of merchants who were privileged enough to gain access to the outermost city of Karshvar Draconis, which is the city of Pygmalion. Once, when I went there during one of my business trips, a rancid mist fell over the city that almost made me feel as if my throat was burning. It was not only me that suffered such hardships, but the entire city. Naturally, the guards and even the mayor came to investigate the cause, and they found out that the one responsible for it is a half-elf named Lux. That boy earned quite a reputation in the city of Pygmalion, and everyone refers to him as he who must not be annoyed. The merchant chuckled because this was one of his unforgettable moments in the outer reaches. Of course, while I am not 100% certain that the half-elf you are looking for is the same half-elf that I know, the possibility exists, the merchant added. Yesterday, I even showed the guards one of the drawings that the Divine Army had been spreading across the lands. They confirmed that the person in the drawing was the same half-elf that made their lives difficult in the past. But there is just one problem. The High King of Lunaria arched an eyebrow after hearing the merchant's words. Problem? The High King asked. What problem? Your Majesty, the half-elf had built a guild headquarters in one of the floating islands in the outer reaches, the merchant explained. However, 2 days ago, the island started to float away, heading east. After bribing a few guards for more information, they said that the half-elf decided to move house and relocate his guild headquarters for reasons that no one knew. The High King of Lunaria stood up from his throne, knowing well why the half-elf decided to leave the outer reaches. Since he was already convinced that the red-headed teenager that the merchant was describing was the same half-elf that they were looking for, he had no plans to waste any time and wanted to capture him as fast as he could. Are you sure that they were heading east? The High King of Lunaria inquired. That is what the guards told me. The merchant shrugged. I am only relaying the answers that I got from them. The High King nodded. Thank you. I promise that you will be greatly rewarded once we confirm this news to be true. I will go talk to the others about your discovery. May the light shine upon us all, the merchant said before giving the High King of Lunaria a polite bow. May the light shine upon us all, the High King returned the merchant's oath, which all the members of the Divine Army use when parting with or greeting each other. I think you should take a look at. A few minutes later, he went to the special teleportation gate that was exclusive for the high-ranking members of the Divine Army, which allowed them instant access to their organization's capital city. East of Karshvar Draconis, the Oracle of the Divine Army muttered before waving her hand in front of her. A second later, a projection appeared showing the map of the center of Elysium, which the followers of the Divine Army of Light had painstakingly made over the course of many years. East of Karshvar Draconis are several kingdoms and empires that we have good relationships with, the Oracle said as she looked at the map. I'm sure that they would be willing to help if we asked them. Also, although that floating island is flying high in the sky, there is a high chance that some people will spot it when it passes by their cities. Can't we pursue it with the Ark? The High King of Lunaria asked. With it, we can catch up to them in just a few days. The Oracle shook her head. The Ark was seriously damaged when I used it to save you and the others. We barely managed to return to the capital, so it will be impossible to chase them using our flagship. How long will it take for it to be repaired? A month. The materials needed to repair it are quite rare, and it will take some time to gather them all. It is also a divine artifact, so it is not something that can be repaired easily. For now, we have to make use of what we have. The High King of Lunaria frowned, but he understood that there was nothing he could do about this matter. So, how do we intercept them? The High King asked. You have a plan, right? The oracle nodded. Although it will take time, we will have to travel using teleportation gates, as well as fly in the sky. If we are lucky, we might be able to catch up to them within a week. A week, the High King muttered before nodding his head. As long as that heretic is killed, waiting for a week means nothing. The oracle also nodded her head in agreement. I will talk to the sovereign and report your findings, the oracle stated. This time, we will bring 12 saints with us. No matter where he runs, we will come to find him. We can't let that heretic escape our grasp a second time. An hour later, the High King of Lunaria, as well as the Oracle of the Divine Army, entered a teleportation gate alongside 20 other saints, who had been called to assist them on their manhunt operation. The Oracle originally wanted only 12 saints to accompany them, but their sovereign insisted that adding a few more would not hurt. With the additional manpower to ensure the success of their mission, the High King of Lunaria was feeling confident that he would finally erase the last remnants of Hirswitha's legacy from the face of the world. Several days had passed since the floating island had left the dragon kingdom of Karshvar Draconis. Lux had spent a lot of time with Valerie and Or, and the three of them were often seen chatting together, as well as dining together. The half-elf noticed that even though Valerie and Or talked to each other from time to time, there seemed to be some kind of distance between them. He didn't know if he was just overthinking things, but whenever the plain-looking girl and the handsome dragon prince talked to each other, they used formal tones and words, unlike how they talked to him. Even so, that didn't stop them from doing things together. Even Kay, Valerie's baby dragon slime, would often accompany Aiko, Holly, and Glee in their blast bomb-making sessions, making Lux feel pity for the newly born baby. A/N. Holly is Leah's baby slime. She is Great General Garrett's youngest daughter. GAAP, Lady Faustina, and Picoro were almost always together discussing random things like the geopolitical states of the warring kingdoms near the center of Elysium. For Lux, these were carefree and relaxing days that allowed him to think more about the future of his guild. Back then, he just wanted to create a guild because he wanted to break free from the restrictions that would have been placed on him in Wildguard Stronghold. If Nero hadn't been part of the Storm Dragons Guild, Lux would have joined in order to help the place that raised him collect resources in Elysium. Sadly, it wasn't meant to be, so he decided to make another guild just to stand on his own. However, he never expected that the guild he would create would transcend all the other guilds in the world, classified as a mythical guild. A guild that was currently trying to escape those who wished to harm it before it could grow to its fullest potential. Just as the half-elf thought that these carefree days would last until they arrived at the Crystal Palace, a nagging feeling started to stir at the back of his mind yesterday. He didn't know what caused it. The only thing he knew was that something was going to happen, and that something wouldn't be good. They say that progenitors develop a very sensitive spiritual instinct when it comes to things that wish to harm them, JAP said to Lux when the half-elf shared his concerns with his master. Your spiritual self can probably sense that a danger that you can't handle on your own is on its way to you. Although I don't know what is causing it, I will order the Sky Turtle to increase its speed so that we can reach the Crystal Palace earlier. True to his word, the floating island did increase its speed, but the anxiety that Lux felt only decreased by a bit. Because of this, he was always on edge and regularly checked the map of his soul book, looking out for any possible red dots on the map that might be heading in his direction. Currently, he couldn't see any red dots on the map. However, he saw countless yellow marks, which were considered neutral beings. Sir Lux, is something wrong? Valerie asked. You seem to be on edge today. Is there something that is bothering you? Or the tea I made isn't good? Your tea is delicious as always, Valerie, Lux replied as he placed his cup on top of the table. I'm just thinking about a lot of things as of late, which makes me feel overwhelmed. I think you should take a look at. Is that so? Valerie looked at the half-elf with a worried gaze. How about a massage? Ollie and Ari always give me a massage whenever I feel stressed. They are very good at it, you know? A massage. Lux pondered for a bit. That sounds like a good idea, but I don't want to impose on them that much. Don't worry. Valerie patted her chest with confidence. As long as I ask them, the two of them will not refuse. Am I right, Ali Ari? Yes, my lady, Ali replied. If that is your wish, we will give Sir Lux a massage. Sir Lux, what kind of massage do you want? Ari asked. Do you want the normal one, or the one with a happy ending? Lux blinked once then twice after hearing Ari's words. This was the first time he had heard of a massage with a happy ending, and he was wondering what kind of massage it was. Then can I get one with a hap dash? Lux was unable to finish what he was going to say, having suddenly received a notification sound inside his head. Upon hearing the warning, his face immediately turned grim. He stood up from his chair and summoned his soul book. At the edge of the map, he saw several blinking red dots that were headed in their direction. The half-elf had placed a special setting on his soul book, which allowed him to gauge how strong the monsters were in his surroundings. This also applied to humans and demi-humans. The bigger the red dot, the stronger that creature was. And currently, in Lux's soul book, there were over a dozen big red dots, letting him know how powerful his incoming enemies were. Saints, Lux said through gritted teeth. Master, we have company. GAP, who was currently having his usual chat with Lady Augustina and Picoro, paused and glanced to the west, where Lux had detected several strong enemies heading in their direction. Noticing the changes in the halfling's expression, Lady Faustina and Picoro also gazed in the direction JP was looking. A moment later, their expressions turned solemn, as they, too, sensed the presences that were slowly catching up to the floating island. It seems like we have company, Lady Faustina said before putting her teacup on the table, and there's a lot of them. Picoro nodded before standing up from his chair. I've been thinking that things were proceeding too smoothly these past few days, which was too good to be true. I guess all of that was just a prelude for this moment. The three most powerful beings in the floating island exchanged glances with each other before nodding their heads at the same time. They had already discussed several countermeasures if such an event were to happen. Now, these countermeasures would be put to the test. If their methods didn't work, then there was only one thing left to do, and that was to let Lux escape the floating island, while they handled his pursuers who were eager to nip his wings in the bud. There it is! One of the saints riding a giant rock pointed in the distance. I can see it now. The High King of Lunaria, as well as the Oracle of the Divine Army, squinted their eyes to look in the direction where the saint was pointing at. At the edge of the horizon, a tiny black speck that could easily be missed by the naked eyes was flying in the sky. After spending many days traveling through countless cities and kingdoms, the saints of the Divine Army had finally caught sight of their target, invigorating them. Along the way, they had asked countless people if they had seen a floating island fly past their cities. Their inquiries bore fruit, and those that had witnessed the floating island had told the saints of the Divine Army where it was headed. Their journey also alarmed the rulers of the kingdoms that they had passed through. For a moment, the rulers thought that the Divine Army of Light was about to invade their lands, making them feel as if their hearts were about to leap out from their chest. When they found out that the saints were just passing through and wanted to use their long-distance teleportation gates, the kings didn't bat an eye and gave them full access to the ones supposedly only the members of the royal families could use. For these kings, the sooner these saints left their domain, the better. Naturally, the High King of Lunaria, the Oracle, as well as the other saints knew what these rulers were thinking. If they were in the same shoes as them, they would also feel anxious, so they didn't stay in one kingdom for a long time. After several minutes, they were getting closer and closer to the floating island. When their target was only 2 miles away from them, a lone figure flew in their direction and stood between them and the floating island. Halt! Picoro blocked the path of the saints of the Divine Army of Light with his hands behind his back. State your affiliation and the reason why you are pursuing the floating island, Picoro demanded in an arrogant tone. I am Picoro, one of the 4 elders of the Crystal Palace. You low-lander scums better answer me or else. The High King of Lunaria and the Oracle of Light frowned as they looked at the black-scaled dragonborn in front of them. Just as they were about to reply, several of the saints under their command ignored Picoro and flew past him. They had traveled many days just to kill that heretic. They wouldn't stop even if the one blocking their path was someone from the Crystal Palace. Picoro, who didn't expect that several of the saints would ignore him, shouted in anger. "You bastards dare ignore me?" Picoro roared as he unfurled his draconic wings, flying after the saints that went past him. The High King of Lunaria and the Oracle glanced at each other and nodded their heads in unison. They understood why their comrades acted the way they did. As long as they killed the heretic, they were willing to compensate the Crystal Palace at a later time. It seems that the authority of the Crystal Palace had waned over the years, Lady Faustina chuckled before glancing at Or, who was standing several meters behind her. They didn't even bother to answer Picoro's inquiries, or didn't say anything and simply looked at the approaching saints, who had ignored the authority of his faction. Deep down, he was seething in anger, but he didn't want to give Lady Faustina the satisfaction of seeing him lose control of his emotions. Cethus' grandma smiled before flying towards the air in order to face the saints that were nearing the island. Without even giving any warning, the Dragonborn unsealed her powers, making her rank instantly jump up to the saint rank. "I think you should take a look at." A loud cracking sound reverberated in the surroundings as Lady Faustina unleashed a shock wave that pushed back the saints that were about to descend on the island. Since she knew that Valerie wouldn't allow the Divine Army of Light to capture the half-elf, she was duty-bound to at least put some effort into protecting him. The saints who had been pushed back by the right-hand woman of the Dragon King frowned, not expecting that another saint was on the floating island. However, they weren't too worried. Even if there were 2 saints blocking their way, it was not enough to contain all of them that numbered over 20. "I am Faustina," Faustina declared. "I am one of the ministers of Karshvar Draconis, serving directly under the Dragon King. State your business, or face the wrath of my lord." Just as she finished saying her speech, the Dragonborn unleashed another shock wave that was meant to seriously injure anyone who got hit by it. This forced the saints to take a defensive stance in order to block the incoming attacks that were coming from the front. However, they didn't know that behind their backs was a very mad Picoro, who had also unleashed a barrage of black flames that contained his fury. Even so, the saints of the Divine Army of Light weren't pushovers. They had fought many wars together, so they already knew how to handle such situations. Some of them blocked Faustina's attack, while the rest blocked Picoro's. This prevented any of them from getting injured, which made Picoro and Lady Faustina frown. "I will not ask again," Picoro declared. "If any of you filthy lowlanders dare to ignore my question once again, the steward of the Crystal Palace will erase your kingdoms from the face of the world." The Oracle of the Divine Army motioned for her comrades to not do anything before confronting the fuming Dragonborn, whose wings were now covered with dark flames. "You already know who we are, so why ask this question, Picoro?" the Oracle inquired. "Or have you forgotten that all of us fought side by side when the denizens of the void invaded our world? I don't remember the faces of filthy lowlanders, especially ugly ones like you." Picoro snapped at the Oracle with bloodshot eyes. "I asked you a question, and you will answer it. Why are you here?" The Oracle, who had just been called ugly, had the strong urge to slap the Dragonborn because of his aesthetic taste. Currently, her appearance was that of a lady in her mid-20s, and she was extremely beautiful. If not for the fact that she was the Oracle of the Divine Army, countless men would have already lined up to profess their wish to marry her. "Then let me jog your memory," the Oracle replied with a determined look on her face. "We are the Divine Army of Light, and we have come to capture the heretic who goes by the name Lux von Kaiser. We already know that he is on that floating island, so there is no use lying to us. All of us are saints, so it will be best if you don't waste our time." Picoro snorted and crossed his arms over his chest. "So what if there is a dumb and stupid half-elf that has the name Lux von Kaiser on that floating island?" Picoro asked back. "This floating island is currently headed to the Crystal Palace because our steward had decided to give it asylum. If you insist on creating trouble, you will have to get through me first." The saints of the Divine Army glanced at each other and nodded their heads in understanding. Without even saying a word, all of them spread out in different directions. Their sovereign had said that their supreme had almost recovered from his injuries. He added that even if they antagonized another supreme, the Divine Army could handle the aftermath. Because of this, they ignored the Dragonborn for a second time and focused on attacking the floating island where the half-elf was hiding. This act made the already angry Picoro roar so loud that it resembled the pealing of thunder. Being ignored once, he might still accept it, but being ignored twice felt like a step on his dignity. Seeing that the saints were so adamant to belittle him and his faction, the arrogant and proud dragonborn flew towards the saints of the Divine Army of Light with the intention to kill. It seems that the Divine Army of Light is serious about killing that boy, Lady Faustina thought as she unleashed more powerful shock waves in order to push back the three saints that attempted to get past her. Do they really not care about my sister's retaliation if Lux dies? Lady Faustina knew about Kyoza's relationship with Lux. However, she didn't fully understand how important the half-elf was to the Crystal Palace. First and foremost, her priority was Valerie's safety, and the only reason why she was trying to help defend the half-elf was because of the Dragon Princess. Picoro, who was now truly angry, didn't hold back with his attacks. Each of his blows was meant to kill, making his targets defend themselves with everything they had. Even so, Lady Faustina and Picoro understood that it was impossible for only the two of them to block all of the saints of the Divine Army of Light at once. The saints knew this as well, so they made sure to spread out in different directions, preventing the two Dragonborns from stopping them in their mission. As a dozen saints were about to approach the floating island, 6 Dragonborns appeared beside, or in a protective formation. All of them were the additional guards that Lady Augustina had sent to protect him, and just like Picoro, they were all saints as well. "Your Highness, your orders?" One of the saints asked the Dragon Prince, who was looking at the Divine Army of Light with a calm expression on his face. "Don't let them come near the floating island," or ordered. "Kill if you have to." "Yes, your Highness," the leader of the saints replied. "However, we must leave one saint to stay and protect you, your Highness. This is non-negotiable." Or nodded in understanding. After getting the Dragon Prince's affirmation, the 5 other saints of the Crystal Palace flew into the sky in order to intercept the saints that had managed to get past Lady Faustina and Picoro. Lux, who was standing near the gate of his guild headquarters, was also paying close attention to the battle that was taking place in the distance. Valerie was standing several meters away from him with Ali and Ari, who were both ready to protect her at any moment. "Master, it seems like we have no choice but to fight," Lux said in a voice filled with determination. "Foolish boy, what can you do against those saints?" GAP replied before cracking his knuckles together. "Just stand back and let the adults handle this. At times like this, you don't have to hesitate. Call upon those that can help you overcome the current situation. There is no shame in asking others for help." Lux nodded because he understood that his master was right. In times like this, he should rely on the adults who had more experience than him in fighting against people of such ranks. The High King of Lunaria, who had already spotted Lux in the distance, pulled back his arm and summoned a flaming spear in his hand. A moment later, he threw it with all his might, with the intention of ending the half-elf's life, whom they had pursued for the past few days. However, the flaming spear he threw was blocked by a barrier of water that appeared out of nowhere, making the High King of Lunaria frown. When the barrier of water disappeared, a man with long blue hair that fluttered in the breeze appeared before him. "Why don't you pick someone your own size?" The headmaster of Barbados Academy, as well as Lux's stepfather, Alexander, hovered in the air, with his arms crossed over his chest. "I think you should take a look at." Before the red-headed teenager left for Elysium, Alexander had told him that he may call upon him during his time of great need. Since they were family, Lux didn't reject his stepfather's help. Before the High King of Lunaria could even reply, a familiar scene appeared in front of him, making his face turn grim. Countless puppets spread throughout his surroundings as a silver-haired lady, whom he had met in the Necromancer's ancestral lands, hovered in the air above Lux's guild headquarters. "You saved me the trouble of looking for you," Vera said with a cold and deadly voice. "Since you came here to die, allow me to personally take your life." Not far from her, an old man, who was wearing tribal attire, laughed as he looked at the saints who had momentarily stopped their advance on the floating island. "It has been a while since I went all out," Maximilian stated with a fearless smile on his face. "I've heard that the saints of the Divine Army of Light are strong. Now, It's time to put the hearsay to the test. The patriarch of the Rowan tribe then pressed his clenched fist over his chest as he prepared to fight. 13th gear, Maximilian declared. Wakmanganchi Aragandi. Immediately, the patriarch of the Rowan tribe transformed into a 30-meter-tall black boar with flames rising up from its snout. Its glowing red eyes held so much rage in them, so intense that even Picoro felt intimidated by them. Puppet Master Vera and the Mad Boar, the oracle of the divine army, narrowed her gaze. These two are trouble. Just like Vera, Maximilian was also well known in the circles of saints. They call him the Mad Boar, for he truly fought like a madman every time he transformed into this colossal beast. Some even referred to him as the Calamity Boar, because the destructive power he possessed was equal to those of calamity beasts. Alexander was not as well known as Vera and Maximilian because he mostly stayed in Solais to handle the affairs of Barbados Academy. Even so, the High King of Lunaria and the Oracle of the Divine Army could tell that he wasn't a simple saint either. Oi, oi, are you guys forgetting about me? GAP, who was standing in front of Lux, asked in a teasing tone. Partial manifestation, GAP said as he raised his arm. At that exact moment, a gigantic fist materialized out of nowhere and smashed one of the saints who had tried to sneak onto the floating island, while everyone's attention was focused on the newcomers. How can we forget you? The High King of Lunaria snorted. Just like that, brat, today will be your death day. GAP the deserter. Are those your last words? GAP asked. Well, let's get this party started then. The saints of the Divine Army of Light didn't expect to face such staunch resistance when they set out on their mission to eradicate Hirswitha's successor. However, since they were already here, they would definitely carry out their mission, even if they had to destroy the entire floating island to accomplish it.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.